The 1969 Dodge Charger, known as the General Lee, is one of the most famous cars in television history. It's a symbol of rebellious fun, but it's also one of the most controversial icons ever put on screen. Beyond that heated debate, however, lies a different, stranger history. The truth is, almost everything you think you know about this car is probably wrong. Behind the orange paint and Confederate flag lies a world of engineering tricks, production chaos, and bizarre choices that made Hazzard County come alive. Almost a firebird. It's impossible to picture Hazzard County without a '69 Dodge Charger soaring through the air. That car is as much a star as Bo, Luke, or Daisy. But the General Lee, as we know it, was almost never a Charger at all. When series creator G.Y. Waldron was first mapping out the show, his initial hunch for the Duke's car was a Pontiac Firebird. The Firebird is a legendary piece of American muscle, but it has a completely different presence and, crucially, a different structural design. This is where the dreamers had to meet the realists. Waldron, in a key decision, deferred to the experience of stunt coordinator Al Wyatt Sr. to choose a proper car that could withstand the rigors of the stunts required. Al Wyatt Sr. was a seasoned professional who had a deep understanding of what television mayhem does to a car. He knew from previous film work, which involved similar high-flying stunts, that the Dodge Charger was the superior vehicle for the job. The Charger's robust B-body unibody construction was simply tougher and more capable of surviving the constant landings and structural stress than the Firebird. This was not a decision about style. It was a decision about physics and survival. That single practical choice made by a stunt expert, not a producer, is what cemented the General Lee's identity and gave us the high-jumping icon that became a legend. A nod to a horse. The car's name seems like the most obvious fact about it, a direct reference to Confederate General Robert E. Lee, which fits the show's rebellious Southern theme. But the path to that specific name is more layered than just a history book reference. It connects directly to the real-world bootlegging that inspired the series. The show's creator based the concept on the life of a real-life moonshiner named Jerry Rushing. Rushing's own car, which he used for high-speed runs, was also named in honor of the general, but in a much more specific way. The idea for the General Lee was developed from the bootlegger Jerry Rushing's car, which was named for Lee's favorite horse, Traveler. This historical link was carried over when Rushing's story was first adapted into the 1975 film Moonrunners, the movie precursor to The Dukes of Hazzard. In that film, the hero car was also named Traveler. When Moonrunners was retooled for television, the creators made a key change. They streamlined the homage, dropping the more obscure Traveler and naming the car directly after the General Lee. The name we know today wasn't the original idea. It was a simplified version of a name chosen by a real bootlegger to honor his hero's horse. It's a fascinating link between real history, a 70s B-movie, and the TV icon. Only Bo drove Lee 1. Among all the General Lees that thundered across television screens, one stands above the rest. Lee 1, the car that made the legendary jump in the show's very first episode. What makes this particular Charger even more intriguing is a small but significant detail about who actually drove it. According to production records, the only cast member that ever drove Lee 1 was John Schneider, who played Bo Duke. That means the original and most famous General Lee was never piloted by both cousins, despite what the show's story implied. Within the series, Bo Duke was known as the daring driver with racing ambitions, while Luke Duke often took the role of strategist or co-driver. This dynamic carried into real life during filming. Tom Wopat, who played Luke, did drive other General Lee cars later in production, but never this one. Lee 1 was featured heavily in the pilot episode, One-Armed Bandits, before being retired after suffering massive frame damage from its iconic 82-foot jump, performed by stuntman Craig Baxley. After that single leap, the car's fate was sealed, making Schneider the only main actor ever to take its wheel. That exclusivity gives Lee 1 a special place in both television and automotive history. It wasn't just the first General Lee, it was Bo Duke's General Lee, a one-of-a-kind survivor from a single spectacular moment that helped define the show's identity. A truly massive car toll. The most memorable feature of the Dukes of Hazzard was its constant high-flying stunt work. Those incredible, soaring jumps over creeks and police cars weren't camera tricks. They were the real deal, and they came at an almost unbelievable cost. To maintain this level of weekly spectacle, the production team had to adopt a brutal philosophy. The 1969 Dodge Charger was not a cherished classic. It was a disposable prop, and the rate at which the show consumed them is genuinely staggering. The series aired 147 episodes, and during that time, over 300 Dodge Chargers were destroyed during filming, roughly 2 per episode. This wasn't just minor damage. The cars were totaled. When a 500-pound car lands after a long-distance jump, the force is immense. The Charger's unibody construction, while tough for its day, was not designed for this. The frames would twist and buckle upon impact, rendering the cars structurally ruined and completely unsafe for any further use, stunt or otherwise. This relentless destruction meant that for nearly every single episode, the production team had to source, build, and then systematically destroy an average of 2 classic Chargers. This practice went on for so long that it created a very real problem for the producers. They began to run out of 1969 models and had to hunt for 1968 Chargers, modifying the grills and taillights to make them look correct. The show's appetite for action literally depleted the available supply of these Mopar icons. The jump that made history. The single most defining image of the Dukes of Hazzard is that slow-motion shot from the opening credits. The General Lee soaring effortlessly over one of Roscoe's police cruisers. That one moment, which perfectly captured the show's rebellious spirit, was not a camera trick. It was a real, spectacular, and incredibly violent stunt, performed by the very first General Lee, known as Lee 1, back in November of 1978. And the statistics behind that famous leap are genuinely mind-boggling for a production vehicle. During that jump, the Charger flew 16 feet in the air over a distance of 82 feet. To put those numbers in perspective, 16 feet of vertical height is just shy of a 2-story house. An 82-foot horizontal leap is longer than 2.5 city buses parked end-to-end. This was not a small hop over a ditch, it was a full-throttle flight. As you might imagine, a 500-pound car achieving that kind of airtime does not have a gentle return to Earth. The car didn't exactly stick the landing. The impact was so catastrophic that it bent the car's frame beyond repair, and Lee 1 was immediately retired from service. That one single destructive jump was so dramatic and so visually perfect that it was immortalized, running in the opening credits for all 7 seasons and forever defining the car in pop culture. A horn bought on impulse. Beyond the orange paint and the 01 on the doors, the General Lee's most famous feature is its sound. That unmistakable 12-note Dixie horn. It seems like a character detail that must have been planned from the very beginning. But the truth is, it was a complete accident. The horn was discovered and acquired thanks to a moment of pure, spontaneous genius from an executive producer during filming. John Schneider, who played Bo Duke, confirmed the story. The crew was on location filming near the Boar's Nest when a random car drove by. As Schneider recalled, someone went by the Boar's Nest in an El Camino and blew the horn. Our executive producer, Paul Picard, who happened to be on the set that day, grabbed the Teamster, jumped into a van, and chased after that guy and bought that horn. Picard had an instant, visceral reaction. He knew in that moment that this sound was the missing piece of the General's personality. There was no studio meeting, no memo, no sourcing through a parts catalog. A producer heard a sound he liked, chased down a stranger in an El Camino, and bought the horn assembly right there on the side of the road. That single impulsive purchase in the middle of a production day is responsible for one of the most iconic sound effects in television history. A stunt mishap's legacy. One of the General Lee's most famous quirks is that Bo and Luke never used the doors. They always slid in and out through the open windows. The show explained this away as a standard NASCAR safety feature, implying the doors were welded shut for racing. But this entire piece of the car's identity, this defining physical gag, was never planned. It was the result of a complete accident during the filming of the very first episode. The production team was filming the show's first ever chase sequence, where the Dukes were chasing Cooter and Roscoe's police car. During the stunt, the passenger's door handle was damaged when it hit the mailboxes and could not be opened from the outside. So, Tom Wopat, Luke, climbed through the window. The door was simply broken. Wopat improvised to get out of the car. The director saw this happen and immediately loved the rebellious, hot rodder look of it. He instantly told John Schneider, who played Bo, to start climbing in and out the same way. The decision was made on the spot. From then on, all General Lees would have their doors welded shut. This accidental bit of choreography, born from a broken handle, became a non-negotiable rule. It even forced a design change. After the first couple of cars, the full roll cages were replaced with a single roll bar, just to make it easier for the actors to perform that iconic slide. The original Hemi Orange. The General Lee's fiery orange paint is one of the most recognizable colors in automotive history. It's easy to assume the producers just picked the loudest, most obnoxious shade they could find to make the car pop on 1970s television screens. But the car's very first paint job was far more specific, and carried a significant name from Mopar's own performance catalog. The choice tied the car directly to the brand's legendary muscle car heritage. The first Charger was painted in a Chrysler color called EV2 Hemi Orange. This wasn't a generic custom mix, it was an official factory color, the same paint code you could order on a brand new Charger or Cuda. Using Hemi Orange was a deliberate nod, linking the General Lee by name to the most powerful and revered engine in the Chrysler Dodge arsenal, the 426 Hemi. This gave the car an instant pedigree, even though the actual cars used on the show almost never contained that rare and expensive engine. This historically significant paint choice, however, was extremely short-lived. The production crew building the first cars in Georgia found that applying this specific factory color over the existing paint was difficult, often resulting in a blotchy and inconsistent finish. This was a major problem for a production that needed to paint multiple cars quickly and have them all match perfectly. Because of this quality control issue, the Hemi Orange was quickly abandoned for a more reliable, non-Chrysler shade that became the standard for the rest of the series. A rival brand's paint. The General Lee is a Mopar icon, through and through, a symbol of Dodge's muscle car dominance. But as we just learned, the original Hemi Orange paint used on the very first cars was a problem for the production team. It was difficult to apply consistently, and when your business model involves painting and destroying multiple cars per episode, you need speed, reliability, and uniformity. The crew needed a color they could buy in bulk and spray quickly without blotching. You would assume they'd just pick another high-impact color from the extensive Dodge or Chrysler catalog, like Go Mango or Vitamin C. They didn't. In a move that would make Mopar purists cringe, the production team turned to Dodge's biggest rival, General Motors. The remaining 300 or so Chargers were painted in a different color called Code 70 Flame Red, which was originally used on 1975 Chevrolet Corvettes. This paint, despite its red name, was the perfect, bright, and vibrant orange hue the producers were looking for. This is the color that truly defined the General Lee for its entire 7-season run. This means that for almost the entire series, the most famous 1969 Dodge Charger in television history was actually wearing Chevrolet paint. This wasn't about brand loyalty, it was a purely practical production decision. The Corvette's Code 70 was readily available, easy to apply, and gave them the consistent, camera-friendly pop they needed week after week. It's a fascinating piece of cross-brand contamination that ultimately created one of the most recognizable cars in the world. Saddle tan interior standard. While the world was focused on the General Lee's orange paint and epic jumps, the producers were also paying close attention to the car's interior. For the hero cars, the ones used for close-up shots with the actors, not the ones destined for a jump, there was a specific factory-correct look. Inside, the General Lee interior was mostly stock, with the original saddle tan vinyl seats and dashboard. The factory option code for the saddle tan interior was C6T. This C6T code specified saddle tan vinyl, a rugged light brown color that the producers felt contrasted perfectly with the bright orange exterior. This wasn't a random choice. It shows that the production team had a very clear vision for the General Lee's complete aesthetic, inside and out, aiming for a consistent stock muscle car feel. But this created a huge challenge for the production. Given the massive number of cars the show went through, finding enough Chargers with this exact factory interior was nearly impossible. This is where the team's dedication to consistency comes in. When they found a car that was otherwise perfect for a hero shot, but had a black, green, or blue interior, they didn't just use it as is. The prop department and car builders would have to paint or dye the dashboards, door panels, and even the vinyl seats to match the official C6T saddle tan benchmark. It's a surprising level of detail and effort for a show that treated its main prop as famously disposable. Dying for continuity. When your production is consuming over 300 Dodge Chargers, you simply don't have the luxury of being picky. The car wrangling team had to source any and all 1968 and 1969 Chargers they could find from all over the country. This meant they were acquiring cars with every factory interior color imaginable: black, blue, green, and red. This presented a huge visual continuity problem. The main hero car, as we know, was benchmarked to the C6T saddle tan interior. They couldn't have Bo Duke slide into a tan car, and then, in the stunt shot, be sitting in a car with a clashing blue interior. The solution was not to waste time and money reupholstering every car. It was much faster and more brutally efficient. However, several Chargers had different interior colors when being converted for the show, and were all dyed to simulate the correct light, brown-colored vinyl upholstery. This means the prop department was essentially a high-speed paint shop. They would take a car with, for example, a factory green interior and just spray dye the dashboard, the vinyl seats, and the door panels to get them as close as possible to the correct tan color. This wasn't about restoration, it was about visual simulation. It's a fantastic, unglamorous detail that highlights the sheer industrial scale of the operation. They were creating disposable props, and a can of vinyl dye was the fastest way to make a clashing car camera-ready before it was launched into the air and destroyed. The flag controversy continues. The single most controversial and defining feature of the General Lee has always been the large Confederate battle flag painted on its roof. It's an inseparable part of the car's identity, but also a symbol that carries an immense amount of historical and political baggage. This puts any owner of an original screen-used car in a difficult position, as professional golfer Bubba Watson discovered. Watson purchased Lee 1, the most famous General Lee of all, the original car that performed the iconic jump in the opening credits, at a 2012 auction. In 2015, amid a growing national controversy over the public display of the flag, Watson made a very public decision. He announced that he was painting over the car's roof. Bubba Watson replaced the Confederate flag roof on Lee 1 with an American flag, causing a stir on the internet. He revealed the change on social media, and the reaction was immediate and polarizing. This single act of restoration and alteration ignited a firestorm. Many people praised Watson for taking a progressive step and removing a symbol they found offensive. However, a large part of the show's fan base was equally upset, arguing that he had altered a piece of television history and that, by removing its most defining, though controversial, graphic, the car could no longer truly be considered the General Lee. It's a powerful example of how this 1970s television prop remains a potent cultural touchstone, forcing its owners to navigate a complex debate. Self-inflicted car shortage. The show's relentless destruction of over 300 Dodge Chargers had a very real-world consequence. By the later seasons, the production team had quite literally bought up most of the available 1968 and 1969 Chargers on the West Coast. They couldn't just call used car lots or scour junkyards anymore because they had effectively created their own shortage. This forced the producers to get creative and, frankly, a little desperate to find the weekly supply of cars they needed for stunts. Their new sourcing method was incredibly low-tech and direct. Producers placed notes on 1969 Chargers in parking lots, trying to combat the local Charger shortage they had created. Imagine walking out of a grocery store and finding a note from a Warner Brothers executive on your windshield, asking to buy your prized muscle car on the spot. This was a genuine tactic. This grassroots effort wasn't the only method. As the shortage became truly severe, the production team even hired small airplanes to fly over residential areas, specifically to spot 1968 and 69 Chargers parked in driveways or backyards. They would then go to the house and try to make a deal. It was a full-scale hunt, born from the fact that the show's most popular feature, the jumps, was actively destroying its most essential prop faster than they could replace it. A near-perfect attendance record. The General Lee isn't just a prop, it's the central character of the entire series. Every plot, every chase, and every escape from Roscoe P. Coltrane revolves around that orange 69 Charger. The show's entire formula is built on the car's abilities and its seemingly constant presence. Given this, you would assume the General Lee has a perfect attendance record, appearing in every single episode from 1979 to 1985. But over a 7-season run, there was one, and only one, exception. Across 147 episodes, the car appears in every episode but one, Mary Kay's Baby. This single episode, a notable anomaly from the show's third season, stands alone as the only time the producers decided the plot could move forward without the show's biggest star. For a series that was so formulaic and so dependent on its high-octane car chases, to completely omit the car is a bizarre creative choice. This fact is less about the one absence and more about the car's incredible consistency. It proves that for the other 146 episodes, the creators understood that the General Lee was non-negotiable. The car was the show. Its near-perfect run is a testament to its central role, making that one single absence in Mary Kay's Baby a legendary piece of Hazzard County trivia. Orange ambassadors stand in. By the final seasons, the Dukes of Hazzard production team had a massive self-inflicted problem. They had successfully bought and destroyed nearly every available 1968 and 1969 Dodge Charger in the country. The well was completely dry, but the show's formula demanded constant, high-impact stunts, which meant they still needed a steady supply of disposable cars. This crisis forced the producers to abandon brand loyalty entirely and resort to some sneaky television trickery. They needed a car that was cheap, available, and from a distance had a somewhat similar profile to the Charger. Their surprising choice came from a competing manufacturer. In the show's later years, AMC Ambassadors painted orange were used to hide the Charger shortage. This wasn't a muscle car. The Ambassador was a full-sized family sedan, but the production team was desperate. They would take these AMCs, paint them in the General's signature orange, apply the 01 and flag, and send them flying. These cars were used as sacrificial lambs, specifically for the big, destructive jumps where the audience was less likely to spot the imposter in a fast-paced action cut. It's one of the show's best-kept secrets. In some of those later episodes, the car you're watching sail through the air isn't a Dodge at all, but a humble AMC in a very convincing Halloween costume. Close-up General Lees. When we imagine the General Lee, we think of earth-shaking, raw horsepower. The car's legend is built on the idea of a top-tier Mopar big block, like a 440 Magnum, or even the mythical 426 Hemi. But the production team had to be extremely practical. They maintained a fleet of different cars for different jobs. There were the stunt cars, which were disposable, and the hero cars, or close-up cars, which were used for all the close-ups and dialogue scenes with the actors. These cars had to be cosmetically perfect and run reliably for the camera, but they didn't need to survive an 80-foot jump. Because these hero cars weren't destined for destruction, their engine specs were based on availability and practicality, not raw power. The close-up Lees, except for the first one, were 383 powered. The 383 cubic inch V8 was a very common and very solid engine option for the 1969 Charger. It was a strong big block, but it wasn't the top-of-the-line 440 or the racing-derived Hemi that the car's reputation implies. The 383 was the reliable workhorse of the Charger lineup. This created a fascinating split in the General Lee fleet. While stunt drivers often used the more powerful 440 equipped cars to get the necessary speed and torque for the big jumps, the pristine cars that the actors actually drove in most of the episode were running the more modest, standard issue engine. The car we saw in all the quiet, character-building moments was a different beast from the one flying through the air. Stunt drivers preferred 440 SS. We've established that the hero cars used for dialogue scenes were typically equipped with the reliable but more common 383 V8 engine. But when it came time to perform the show's signature, high-flying jumps, the stunt professionals had very different and very specific demands. Their job wasn't just to drive, it was to defy gravity, to launch a 500-pound car into the air and clear an 80-foot gap. They needed raw, immediate, and predictable power. This is where the engine hierarchy on set became crucial. The stunt drivers tended to prefer 440S, a higher performance engine, for jumps. So 440 powered stunt Lees were often saved for the higher and longer jumps. The 440 Magnum V8, with its 375 horsepower and massive 480 pound-feet of torque, was the power plant of choice. It gave the drivers the explosive acceleration they needed to hit the ramp at the precise speed required for a successful and safe, or at least survivable, landing. Because of this preference, the production team actively managed their fleet based on what was under the hood. When they acquired a Charger that happened to have a 440, it was considered a prized asset. It wouldn't be wasted on a simple bootleg turn or a minor chase scene. These high-performance cars were specifically earmarked and saved for the episode's biggest and most dangerous stunts, while the less powerful 383S or even 318S were used for the more routine ground-level action. Actors were kept grounded. John Schneider, as Bo Duke, was the show's undisputed wheelman. The audience saw him slide the General Lee through dirt roads, perform countless bootleg turns, and drive in almost every close-up. It's the core of his character. This naturally leads to the assumption that he must have, at some point, performed the car's most iconic stunt, the jump. But for the entire 7-season run, the actors were strictly forbidden from ever getting the car airborne. The reason was not about ability. It was about simple, high-stakes economics. John Schneider himself explained the situation perfectly. "I did not jump the General League. If you can imagine, it's a pretty dangerous thing to do, so if you've got 200 people that are working on a television show, and Bo goes out, jumps the General Lee, and hurts himself, you've got 200 people out of work." This was the unglamorous reality of television production. The show employed a massive crew of around 200 people. If a lead actor like Schneider were to be injured attempting a dangerous stunt, the entire expensive production would grind to a halt, and all 200 of those crew members would be instantly unemployed. The risk to the show was far too great. So, while the actors handled the impressive-looking ground-level driving, the dangerous and legendary aerial work was left exclusively to the team of professional stuntmen and women. Stunt cars carried ballast. Executing the General Lee's signature jumps required more than just speed and skill. It demanded careful engineering to control the car's flight. The Dodge Charger's heavy front end, dominated by its V8 engine, had a natural tendency to pitch downward during a jump. If left unchecked, this forward nosing could result in catastrophic landings, destroying the car and endangering the stunt driver. To counteract this, the production team implemented a surprisingly simple but extreme solution, adding hundreds of pounds of ballast to the trunk. When filming a jump, anywhere from 500 to 1,000 pounds, or 230 to 450 kilograms of sandbags or concrete ballast was placed in the trunk to prevent the car from nosing over and landing on the front bumper. The sheer volume of weight added demonstrates the practical challenges behind these cinematic feats. By loading the rear with sandbags or concrete, the General Lee achieved a more level trajectory in the air, allowing drivers to execute jumps with a greater chance of controlled landings. This added weight dramatically changed the car's handling, especially at high speeds, and required precise calculation to ensure the stunt could be performed safely. Even with these modifications, the outcome of each jump remained uncertain. Landings could still be violent, often rendering the cars unusable after a single take. The need for such drastic counterbalancing highlights the intense physical and mechanical demands placed on the vehicles, as well as the ingenuity of the crew in keeping the General Lee airborne without immediate disaster. A jet-propelled General. When it came time to reboot the General Lee for the 2005 feature film, the production team wanted to elevate the stunts to a level the original TV show could only dream of. The classic 1970s method involved a brave stunt driver, a lead foot, and a trunk full of concrete. The 2005 movie, however, brought in military-grade technology to achieve its most spectacular aerial moments, removing the human element entirely for the biggest jumps. For these massive leaps, the crew used cars that couldn't even drive themselves. The engineless Chargers were then launched without drivers by a diesel-driven catapult, similar in principle to those used on aircraft carriers. The stunt cars were completely stripped of their engines and transmissions, turning them into unpowered aerodynamic projectiles. This made them lighter and, crucially, meant no driver had to be inside, allowing the team to attempt stunts that would be far too dangerous for a human. This diesel-powered catapult system was essentially a land-based version of the steam launchers that fling fighter jets off an aircraft carrier. It gave the crew precise control over the car's speed and trajectory, allowing them to achieve massive, record-breaking jumps for the film. It's a wild, high-tech solution that stands in stark contrast to the gritty, brute force methods used to get the original General Lee airborne. The General Lee is so much more than just an orange car that jumps a lot. Its entire legend is built on a foundation of weird facts, happy accidents, and desperate production hacks. Just imagine, the most famous Dodge in history was painted with Chevrolet Corvette paint. When the production team completely ran out of Chargers, they just dressed up AMC ambassadors in orange and hoped no one would notice. Even the iconic welded shut doors, a defining character trait, only became a thing because a stunt driver accidentally broke a door handle during the very first chase. It just proves that the General Lee is a true one-of-a-kind, an icon built from equal parts Mopar muscle, Hollywood magic, and pure brute force engineering. Together, these stories reveal that the General Lee wasn't just a star on screen, it was a carefully managed, mechanically complex, and sometimes unpredictable hero that captured the imagination of fans while enduring incredible physical demands.